this even legal? Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and this is that time of year when we have to take a look at the so-called 59-minute rule and answer some important questions. What is it? How should it be used? Is it even legal? It is. And what are some best practices for using it? To get started, the 59-minute rule is a colloquial way of saying that the supervisors of federal civilians have the authority to excuse brief absences. In the past, I've gone down the rabbit hole to explain the specifics of how this rule is implied without being explicitly stated. And if you're interested, I'll put a link to this old video, plus I'll put a link to a really good article from the Army Lawyer magazine. Instead of all the technical stuff, I want to focus on why should you use this rule. In short, for public safety, especially come this October 31st. The number of pedestrians killed by vehicles almost doubles on Halloween night. In fact, this chart compares pedestrian fatalities on Halloween to October 24th or November 7th, either 1 week before or 1 week after. And you see that big spike starting about 4 p.m.? Those are dead kids. Those are motorists who hit some overexcited 10-year-old. In fact, the rate of fatality for 4 to 8-year-olds goes up 10 times. So listen, this coming Thursday, use the 59-minute rule to make sure that your folks have their cars home and parked by 4 p.m. Do not let them be racing home, frazzled over some petty issue from work, speeding through the dark streets of a subdivision, not thinking about what they're doing or the environment they're in. Home and parked by 4 p.m. regardless of whether they have children or not. In fact, if they don't have kids, it's that much more likely that they won't realize how dangerous things are that day. Now, some of you are going to want something to hang your hat on, and for that, I'm going to point you towards the Office of Personnel Management's fact sheet for administrative leave. This is an excused absence from duty without loss of pay or charge of leave. This will get you the fact that agency heads have the inherent authority to prescribe regulations for their organizations. But that's also about as good as you're going to get, because nobody is going to put anything in writing that creates an entitlement to administrative leave. You are just not going to find any signed policy that says that you should or must use the 59-minute rule. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still a responsibility, particularly when it comes to public safety. And the fact that there is no strict guidance about that kind of points us to some of the best practices. Number one, you want to be able to put your finger on why the excused absence is beneficial for the organization. Number two, you're going to want to use the 59-minute rule sparingly. You don't want to do it systematically, and you certainly do not want to create an expectation among the workforce that they're always going to get it. Number three, if you are going to use the 59-minute rule, well, it's best to announce it early enough that people actually leave early. It is pretty pointless to wait until half the staff is gone to quietly announce that we're doing the 59-minute rule. In fact, if you wait that long, some of your staff are going to feel gypped by the timing of your decision, and that's kind of a crappy rock and a hard place for a leader to be in, because you've made a decision, but that decision didn't make any difference, and at the same time your staff starts to distrust your motives. As a rule of thumb, I've always felt that you should announce the 59-minute rule by about noon, maybe 1 o'clock. Number four, I always like to tell my boss that I'm going to be implementing the 59-minute rule. You know, at a staff meeting, maybe a day or two before I actually do it. And I know, some of you are going to take the position of, well, you should ask for forgiveness instead of permission. But the reason that I tell my boss is not to ask for permission, but to remind them and the other leaders at that staff meeting that, hey, by the way, Thursday is Halloween night. Now, there is one important consideration that comes into play here, and that is that you can grant the 59-minute rule to federal employees, but you can't grant it to contractors. And where this really matters is where your office has a mix of military and federal civilian and contractors. I mean, if you clear out the military and the GS workers, well, in a lot of cases, you can't just leave the contractors behind to lock up on their own, which means you have to have a plan, and that is just one more reason to think ahead about this. But don't worry, you'll be fine. But in the meantime, one of the things that you probably should start thinking about are hard snow days. If you're in the National Capital Region, winter has a way of surprising folks, and if you want to see what I mean by that, watch this video.